Why do I feel lonely even when I'm not alone? Have you ever been in a room full of people, yet felt utterly alone? You hear the noise, the chatter, the daily rhythms of life. But inside, there's this quiet ache. A sense of being unseen. If you're over 60, this might feel familiar. And you're not alone in feeling this way. In fact, it's one of the most common struggles we see in older adults today. Let's talk about something that doesn't always get the attention it deserves: loneliness. Not the kind that's obvious, like when someone is living alone with no family or friends nearby. But the kind that sneaks up on you even when you're surrounded by people. Maybe you're sitting at a family dinner or in a crowded waiting room, yet somehow you feel like no one truly sees you. That's the paradox right there. Loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from feeling disconnected from others, from meaning, even from yourself sometimes. I've spoken with so many older folks over the years, some living in lively retirement communities, others in the quiet of their own homes. And here's what's fascinating: it's not the number of people around that determines whether someone feels lonely. It's the depth of their relationships. You can have friendly neighbors waving good morning every day and still feel emotionally isolated if no one is really asking how your heart is doing. I remember a conversation with a woman named Miss Dorothy. She was 84 at the time. Still sharp, still full of stories. She told me, "I get visitors. My kids come every week. But no one looks me in the eyes and says, 'Mom, how are you?' Really? They bring groceries, but they never bring time." That stuck with me. Because it's such a clear picture of what so many older adults feel but don't always say out loud. On the surface, everything looks fine. People drop by, the fridge is stocked, maybe there's even laughter in the room, but deep down, there's a longing for real connection. For someone to sit down, take a breath, and simply be present. Loneliness, in this sense, isn't just about solitude. It's about a lack of emotional closeness. It's when you feel like the people around you are more focused on checking tasks off a list than truly seeing who you are. And here's something else I've noticed: sometimes people who live completely alone out in the countryside, maybe just them and their garden, feel more at peace and more emotionally fulfilled than someone in a busy household. Why? Because they feel connected to something. Maybe it's nature, maybe it's their faith, maybe it's the sense of purpose in their daily routine. They might have just one or two deep, meaningful relationships instead of many surface-level ones. So if you've ever asked yourself, "Why do I feel so alone even though I'm not?" you're not imagining things. It's a real, deeply human experience. And it's more common than you might think. Loneliness isn't about location. It's not about how many people pass through your door or how often your phone rings. It's about whether the connections in your life actually feed your soul, not just fill your calendar. In the next part, we'll take a closer look at what loneliness actually does to our bodies and minds, because, believe it or not, it can affect us just as much as a physical illness. But for now, just remember this: you're not the only one who's felt this way, and there is nothing wrong with needing more than just company. You deserve to feel connected. Let's take a moment to talk about what's really happening beneath the surface when we feel lonely. And I don't mean just emotionally, I mean what's going on inside our bodies. Because here's the thing a lot of people don't realize: loneliness is not just in your head. It actually has a physical impact on your health, and it's surprisingly powerful. Over the years, researchers have dug into this, and the findings are honestly a little shocking. For example, one large study out of Brigham Young University found that loneliness increases your risk of dying early by as much as 26%. That's not a small number. In fact, they say it's as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Can you believe that? And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? When we're disconnected, emotionally isolated, it puts our whole system on edge. Our body reacts as if we're under threat. You know that feeling when you're deeply lonely, and it's like your chest tightens, your stomach knots up, and everything just feels heavier? That's not your imagination. That's your nervous system sounding the alarm. What's happening is this: loneliness triggers your body's stress response, almost like you're in a constant state of fight or flight. Cortisol, the stress hormone, gets released more frequently. And if that goes on for too long, your body starts to pay the price. Your immune system weakens. You become more vulnerable to inflammation. Over time, that can lead to a greater risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, and even dementia. Yes, you read that right, dementia. Researchers have found a strong connection between chronic loneliness and cognitive decline. The brain, it turns out, needs connection like the body needs food. Without meaningful interaction, certain parts of the brain, especially those tied to memory and emotional regulation, can begin to shrink or slow down. There's also this fascinating bit: loneliness lights up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. That means your brain literally processes loneliness as if you're being hurt. And in a way, you are. Not with bruises or broken bones, but something deeper. It's like a quiet ache that just lingers in the background. And here's something most people don't realize until they go through it: when you're lonely for a long time, it actually becomes harder to reach out. Your brain starts to expect rejection or disconnection. So you pull back more, even though deep down, you're craving connection. It's like your biology is working against you, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Now, none of this is meant to scare you. But it's important to know that what you're feeling isn't just in your imagination or something you should just get over. There's a real, biological reason why loneliness feels so heavy, and why it can wear you down over time. We're going to talk more in the next part about how this shows up in real life, how it sneaks into our daily routines and interactions. But for now, just know this: if you've been feeling off, tired, or just not like yourself lately, it might not just be age or stress. It might be loneliness. And you're not alone in that. Sometimes, the best way to understand loneliness is not through numbers or theories, but through real people. People who've lived full lives, raised families, worked hard, and now find themselves in this strange, quiet space where the world keeps moving, but they feel stuck in place. Let me tell you about George. He's 72. A quiet man with soft eyes and a kind smile. George lost his wife after nearly 50 years of marriage. Half a century. That kind of bond doesn't just disappear, it becomes a part of who you are. After she passed, his children, loving, well-meaning, moved him into their home so he wouldn't be alone. The house was full: grandkids, music, laughter, meals together. But one evening, when we were sitting on the porch, George looked out into the yard and said, almost in a whisper, "I miss having someone who just understands me. I hear their voices, but I feel like I'm fading." That hit me hard. Because he wasn't missing people, he was missing connection. That kind of soul-level understanding that doesn't need explanation. Someone who knows your quirks, your silences, your rhythms. He wasn't lonely for company. He was lonely for recognition, for someone who really saw him. Then there's Linda, 68. You'd think Linda was the picture of a vibrant retirement. She was a retired schoolteacher, still active in the community. She volunteered, helped at church, even led a local choir group every Thursday. Her calendar was full. People loved being around her. But one afternoon, during a quiet moment after a community event, She sat down, took a deep breath, and started crying. Through tears, she said, "They all think I'm happy. But when the doors close at night, I feel like I don't matter anymore." It wasn't sadness over being physically alone, it was this deeper ache, like she was just drifting through life without purpose. All her life, she had been needed. Students, parents, committees, she was always someone others turned to. But now, she didn't feel essential to anyone's day anymore. And that kind of loneliness cuts deep. Then there's Hector, 80. He lives with his wife and his adult son. He doesn't live in silence, there are conversations, television, family dinners. Meals are taken care of. He has a bed to sleep in and a roof over his head. On the outside, it looks like a good setup. But when we spoke, he looked down at his hands and said, "I haven't had a real conversation in months. Everyone's too busy. They talk at me, not to me." And that's a kind of loneliness not many people talk about: emotional neglect. You're technically not alone, but you feel like a ghost in your own home. People go through the motions, drop off food, mention the weather, but no one actually checks in on your heart. Each of these stories paints a different shade of loneliness. George missed the intimacy of a shared life. Linda missed feeling like she mattered. Hector missed being heard. And that's the thing, loneliness isn't one size fits all. It shows up in the cracks between our routines, in the pauses between conversations, in the quiet moments when no one's looking. What these stories remind us is that being around people doesn't mean we feel connected. Sometimes, it's quite the opposite. And if you're feeling something similar, please know you're not broken. You're human. And you're definitely not alone in feeling alone. You know, when people talk about loneliness, especially for older adults, the same well-meaning advice always comes up. You've probably heard it too. Why don't you join a group? Maybe volunteer somewhere? You should think about getting a dog or a cat, they are a great company. And look, none of those are bad ideas. They come from a good place. They really do. Socializing, giving back, caring for a pet, these things can bring structure, even joy. But here's the part no one talks about: they don't always help with the loneliness that really hurts. Because let's be honest, you can join a group and still feel like no one truly sees you. You can be surrounded by friendly faces and still feel like your presence doesn't really matter. You can volunteer and still go home at the end of the day feeling emotionally empty. And as comforting as pets can be, they can't ask you how your day was, or laugh at your jokes, or remember that story you've told 3 times before. Here's the truth that often gets missed: what we're all aching for isn't just activity, it's connection. Real, human connection. That means being seen for who you are, not just what you can do. It means someone asking how you really feel, not just how your morning went. It means someone remembering that your favorite pie is lemon meringue because that's what your mom used to bake, or that you love playing jazz trumpet back in high school. It's about being known, not just noticed. And that's why the join a group advice can fall flat. Because if that group doesn't offer real emotional reciprocity, if it's just small talk and polite smiles, it might leave you feeling even more isolated. Like you tried, and it still didn't work. And then the voice in your head starts whispering, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just not good at this anymore. But it's not you. It's that the advice often skips over the part that really matters: the quality of connection, not the quantity of people around you. We also have to acknowledge something else that gets overlooked: not everyone feels comfortable putting themselves out there. Not everyone has the energy or confidence to walk into a new space and strike up conversations. Especially if they are already feeling down or out of place. So telling someone to just get out more can feel dismissive. Almost like saying, your feelings would go away if you just tried harder. But loneliness isn't a failure to be social. It's a sign that your deeper emotional needs aren't being met. Needs like feeling respected, feeling important to someone else's life, feeling like your thoughts, your memories, your fears they matter. So, yes, join the group, volunteer, adopt a pet if it brings you joy. But if it doesn't fill that emotional gap, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just human. And you're longing to feel truly connected. It's not silly or weak. It's valid. It's real. And it's worth talking about. Over the years, I've come to see that loneliness isn't solved by just being around people. It runs deeper than that. What really helps is building intentional connections, not just casual ones, but ones that feed the soul. And to do that, I've found it helpful to think in terms of what I call the 3 layers of connection. 1. Connection with self. This is the one people often skip. But in many ways, it's the foundation. If we don't have a relationship with ourselves, if we've lost touch with our own inner voice, it's hard to connect meaningfully with anyone else. When we talk about connection with self, we're really talking about knowing who we are beyond our roles, beyond being a parent, a worker, a spouse. Who are you when no one's watching? What lights you up? What have you quietly carried for decades that maybe no one else knows? Sometimes, reconnecting with yourself starts in small, quiet ways. Journaling, even just a few sentences a day, can help untangle your thoughts and make sense of your feelings. Meditation or prayer, however you define it, can create a space where your inner life finally has room to breathe. Reflecting on your life story, not in a formal way, just in memory, can be healing. What have you overcome? What moments still bring you joy? One older gentleman I knew started writing little memory letters to himself, short notes about moments in his life he didn't want to forget. He said it helped him remember that his life had meaning, even on days when it felt quiet or small. 2. Connection with one other. We often think we need a group to feel connected. But in reality, one true connection can be more powerful than a room full of acquaintances. This doesn't have to be a lifelong best friend. It could be a kind neighbor who checks in, a therapist who holds space for your emotions, a pastor or rabbi who listens without judgment, even someone you meet online, if the bond is honest and mutual. What matters here isn't frequency, it's depth. A single conversation where you feel heard and understood can soften loneliness in ways that endless small talk never could. There's something healing about being able to say, "This is what I'm feeling," and having someone respond, "I get it. I see you." That kind of connection reminds us we're not invisible. We're not alone in the world. 3. Connection with community. Once those first 2 layers are in place, the third one becomes possible: connection with the world around you. That could mean a lot of things. It might look like joining a community garden, where your hands work the soil beside others. Singing in a choir, where your voice becomes part of something larger. Mentoring a younger person, offering your wisdom, your patience, your time. Even participating in an online forum, if it fosters real, respectful conversation. What matters is not the format, it's whether it helps you feel like you belong. And when that happens, when you start to feel like your presence has a ripple effect, you begin to feel more rooted, more real, more connected. And yes, digital spaces can count, too. Especially when in-person options are limited. If an online book club or senior Zoom group makes you laugh or reflect or feel seen, that's real connection. Let's talk about what really helps when it comes to easing loneliness, especially the kind that doesn't go away just because there are people in the room. There's no magic fix. But over time, certain approaches have shown true promise. These aren't just feel-good suggestions, they are rooted in real research, and even more importantly, they feel right to the people who try them. Narrative therapy, telling your story. One of the most powerful tools I've seen is simply this, telling your own story. And no, you don't have to write a book or speak on a stage. You can write it in a notebook, record it into a phone, or just tell it to someone you trust. When older adults take the time to reflect on and share their life stories, whether it's the struggles they overcame, the love they gave, or the things they've learned, it often brings this unexpected feeling of peace. Like, wow, I really have lived. And it meant something. I remember an 87-year-old man, Mr. Ellis, who began writing letters to his younger self. At first it felt strange to him. But as he kept going, he told me, I didn't know how much I needed to hear from myself. That's the heart of it. Loneliness can make us feel like our story doesn't matter anymore. Narrative work proves otherwise. Intergenerational programs, bridging the generational gap. There's something magical about seniors mentoring younger people. It's not about teaching in a formal sense. It's just showing up, sharing perspective, letting younger folks know what patience looks like, what resilience sounds like. Whether it's reading to children at the library, teaching a teen how to cook a family recipe, or simply listening to someone younger talk about their world, it creates a beautiful exchange. Both sides walk away feeling seen. And for many older adults, it brings back a sense of usefulness that's been missing since retirement. One woman told me, they might not know it, but they gave me back a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Spiritual or mindfulness practice, finding meaning in stillness. You don't have to be religious to benefit from spiritual or mindfulness practices. This is more about creating space to breathe, reflect, and feel connected to something beyond the immediate. It could be morning meditation with soft music, a few quiet minutes in prayer, a gratitude journal, or even walking through a park with your thoughts. That kind of intentional stillness can be deeply healing. It reminds us that even when we are alone, we are not abandoned. There's something greater holding us, and we're part of it. Emotion-focused therapy, giving language to what you feel. Sometimes we carry loneliness like a silent weight. We don't even have the words for it. That's where this type of therapy comes in. It's gentle, but deep. It helps people explore feelings they might have buried for years: grief, disappointment, even anger, and name them out loud. Naming a feeling is the first step toward healing it. And it's okay if therapy sounds intimidating. Sometimes, it just means having someone skilled who will listen without trying to fix you. Just being heard, that can be life-changing. Digital connection, done right. Let's be honest. Technology can feel overwhelming. But when used with intention, it can actually enhance real connection. Video calls where you see your grandchild's smile. Online groups where people talk about things that matter, like books, movies, or shared struggles. Even simple games you play with a friend across the country, these can all build bonds. The trick is to go beyond surface level. A quick like or emoji doesn't cut it. But a conversation, a shared laugh, a real check-in, that's real. Let's just take a breath and let everything settle for a moment. Everything we've talked about, loneliness, connection, emotional honesty, it's a lot. And if you're still here, that means you're already doing something brave, you're facing it. So let's gather up what we've learned, slowly and gently. You're not alone in feeling lonely. Even though loneliness makes us feel like we're the only ones, the truth is, millions of older adults feel it too. It just doesn't always look like what people think. Sometimes it hides behind polite smiles, busy schedules, or well-decorated homes. You might be surrounded by people who love you deeply, but if the emotional bridge between you feels frayed, it can feel like you're on your own little island. You're not imagining that. And you're not broken for feeling it. There's strength in naming that truth. Emotional connection, physical presence. Just having bodies in the room doesn't guarantee closeness. What most of us really crave is eye contact that lingers. A voice that doesn't rush. A moment that isn't distracted by a phone or chore. One woman I spoke with put it perfectly: I'd trade an hour of small talk for 5 minutes of real talk. And that's it, right? We want to feel felt. And that kind of connection can happen across a dinner table or through a single, heartfelt phone call. Real connection requires depth, not just contact. It's easy to fill a calendar, join a group, sit in a circle. But the real transformation happens when someone says, "Tell me something true," and actually sticks around for the answer. We live in a world that moves fast. But connection moves slow and deep. It's built over time, through moments of shared vulnerability, those tiny windows where you let someone see your joy, or your pain, or that silly thing that made you laugh last night. That kind of intimacy doesn't happen by accident. It grows when we invite it. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the door to belonging. We've all been taught to be strong. But what if real strength looks like saying, "I'm struggling right now"? What if it looks like telling a friend, "I miss feeling close to someone"? Those words may feel scary, but they create the very thing we need: closeness. Letting your guard down might be the bravest thing you ever do. And more often than not, people respond with grace, not judgment. Because most of them are just waiting for someone else to go first. Your story matters, and sharing it may change everything. Whether it's in a notebook, a voice message, or a conversation over tea, telling your story reminds you, and others, that your life still has texture. That it's still unfolding. That the things you've felt and learned have value. Sometimes we think our story isn't exciting enough to share. But that's not the point. The point is honesty. Your truth is enough. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be real. When you share your experience, you give someone else permission to share theirs. And that, right there, is how loneliness begins to lose its grip.